All right. I'm gonna try to record this tonight. I've got Mark's page up to here as well. So I'm gonna share my screen from there and try to record this. I know it's not a great night for everybody, being a work night. So hopefully those of you who, couldn't join in tonight can listen in later. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. Um, Bring up the slideshow here. Hopefully you guys can see this. So I'm Heather, and I'm a squirrel hawker here in West Virginia. And I live in, I'll just show you. I live in central West Virginia, so right in the middle of this little red state here. And we have a lot of squirrel hawking here in the mountains. So that's kind of what we hawk. We hawk fox squirrels and gray squirrels. And there are rabbits here, but a majority of what we hawk are fox squirrels and gray squirrels. So I'm going to be talking tonight from that, from those experiences. Now I'm going to stop my video and make sure that you can see this slideshow here. So like I said, I'm Heather McNemar. I'm a squirrel hawker here in Appalachia, and the presentation that I want to give tonight, it's not your typical how-to presentation. A couple of seasons ago, I released a book called Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia, and I documented a season of lessons that I learned under my mentor, Ray, and I'll be speaking tonight from those experiences. So just keep in mind that what works for me might not work for you. Every bird's different. And that if you do something differently than I do, please know that I don't think you're doing it wrong, and that my way is the only way. I think we all know there's some universally accepted fundamentals in falconry, but just remember that there's very few absolutes in this sport. And remember, my book's called Squirrel Hawking in Appalachia, not Squirrel Hawking. So lastly, a note on hen red tails. I do say hen red tail and not female red tail, which makes a lot of folks cringe these days. But I learned from some of the most respected old school falconers in the field of squirrel hawking, and you tend to pick up the lingo from the people you surround yourself with. So that's where that comes from. And at the end of the day, my bird, she puts game in the bag, so it doesn't much bother me what I call her. Now the book. It's sold out in print, but we're working on an ebook that we hope will be coming out soon on Amazon. So, if you get a chance to pick up a printed copy, a used printed copy of the book, that's great. And you can get that ebook soon, hopefully. So tonight, I'm going to talk about a few different things. And the first one's a little bit polarizing, I'll admit. It's selecting a bird. If you can bear with me through that part, even if you don't agree with some of the things I'm going to talk about, hopefully you can, pick up some great husbandry tips as it pertains to squirrel hawking. The bulk of what I'm going to talk about tonight are lessons that I learned from the field, and that kind of goes back to the book. So anyway, that's kind of what we're going to talk about tonight. So let's dig into this if everybody's ready. First thing I want to talk about is selecting a bird, and I was taught to look for three things in a good squirrel bird: foot size, attitude, and overall size, and it's not steered me wrong. First thing I look for is big feet in a squirrel bird. I have to have a bird that can keep a hold of a fox squirrel. Many of the properties that we hunt here in West Virginia are either gray squirrel or fox squirrel, and a lot of times they're not a combination of both. So if you go to a fox squirrel property, you're probably not going to get a gray squirrel. So you have to make sure that you've got a bird that's got a foot size that can grab those fox squirrels effectively. My goal is to consistently take game with the birds I fly. And simply put, I can't do that season after season if a bird's foot size isn't there. So, you know, when you're out trapping, you'll get to where you can look at a bird's feet and say, yeah, that's close, or this is obviously not a bird I want to keep. But if there's one that's close, you know, you sock it up, take it home. You think you might, this is the bird that you're gonna fly. If you're curious, you can take that bird's foot, put it on a sheet of paper, and you mark the paper from the end of the middle talon to the back of the halix talon, and just measure that distance. And personally, what I look for, what I was taught to look for, is anything over 5 inches if you're hawking big fox squirrels and big gray squirrels like we have up here in West Virginia. Now, the next thing I look for is attitude. And, you know, that means a few things. Off the trap, what does it look like off the trap? You want a bird that's more concerned with that bait mouse or your trap bird than it is with you. And you want a bird that doesn't go into shock right off the bat. You want a bird that's bold and confident while you're training. And that generally translates to a bold and confident bird in the field. So I also look for attitude. The next thing, next point, I'm not talking about to start an argument. And I think we all know overall size is a very polarizing subject among squirrel hawkers. I'm going to be speaking here from personal experience and mentorship on this one. Here in West Virginia, we're generally looking for a bird that's in the 47 to 50 ounce range. Empty crop, medium keel off the trap. You know, that's the basic size that you're looking for. Now, I'm willing to settle for a little less than 50 ounces off the trap as long as foot size and attitude are there. But one of my mentors has a pretty hard rule on that one for himself. He's generally looking for 50 ounces and over. So, you know, you want a bird an overall size that's large if you're going to be hawking those large squirrels. Now, why do I want a big hen red tail? Is it because bigger's always better? No, my bird she isn't a status symbol, and she's not something I use for a measuring contest. I fly a big hen red tail because I have to hawk what I've got. And what I've got here in West Virginia are big fox squirrels. Now, Matt Mullinex, he more eloquently describes this concept in his new book, For Falconry Fundamentals. He calls it prey base, and I'm going to swap my video. I don't know if you can see me here, if you can see me. This is his book, For Falconry Fundamentals. It's a fantastic book. If you don't have this book, I highly recommend picking up a copy. It's available on Amazon. He's also got a Kindle version. So great book. In it, he talks about prey base. So back to the prey base concept. We all know that a hawk is capable of taking prey that's larger than it is. And they're even capable of taking untraditional prey. But Matt also very wisely warns in his book, and this is the quote, "Don't let that blind you to the rules." He describes raptors as pragmatists, and I couldn't agree more. While a hawk may take outsized or outmatched game today, it doesn't mean that they will consistently continue to do so if the odds aren't repeatedly stacked in their favor. So I want to give you a couple examples here. I'm sure many of you have heard the argument that a red tail's best year is always their first year. And a lot of falconers don't believe in intermewing a red tail for this reason. But I'm here to tell you from personal experience that I've found this to be untrue where I live. It's a matter, again, of matching your bird to the quarry that you have available. So take, for instance, this is my current red tail, Mags. She's got large feet. She's got a hefty body. She's not huge. I mean, she's a nice size red tail. She flies between 1235 and 1265, depending on the temperature. But she's confident and she's capable of taking large gray and fox squirrels. When she grabs a squirrel, because her feet are so large, she rarely loses it. Because she doesn't lose these squirrels and she's experienced very few bad bites, she continues to take these gray squirrels and fox squirrels consistently. She knows she can do it, so she does. Now, during Mags's first season, she took 26 head, 25 squirrels, and an accidental possum, which I do count. But last season, her second season, Mags took 51 head, 49 squirrels, and 2 bunnies. The point is this: she continued to consistently take the game we put in front of her and even improve with experience because she was confident and comfortable with the quarry that was being offered. Now, this isn't an isolated experience. There's a lot of other falconers in West Virginia, including one of my mentors, who's had, the same experience with multiple hen red tails over the years. And it's because the birds that we fly are suitably matched to the quarry. Now, take a small to medium-sized passage red tail and fly it here in West Virginia. These birds, they often perform okay during their first year, but with some very notable differences from the hens. You'll see these smaller birds grab a squirrel and they'll lose it before you get to them. And honestly, that's something I'm not really interested in when I'm out hawking. I want a bird that has the squirrel given a good grab. Now, you'll also see these birds, they'll start refusing fox squirrels by the end of the season. And rightly so. I mean, they think, man, those things are big and they bite bad. And this is what happened with my first red tail here. This is my first red tail, little tiercel. He flew around 990 grams. He had small feet and he had a great temperament. He was so gentle, and I loved how he was around humans. But his small foot size and his insecurity about squirrels made him a horrible squirrel hawk. But the most notable difference in the tiercel red tails here in West Virginia, it generally occurs during their second season. You'll see these birds, they become lackluster even on gray squirrels. And the falconer, he's like scratching his head and he's wondering what in the world happened. Why did this bird do so good the season before and now we're not getting anything? And the answer is almost always prey based. The falconer's taken a bird that wasn't well matched for the quarry. Now, remember, I'm talking about West Virginia, so don't crucify me yet. This bird was at weight the season before and willing to grab big squirrels and be rewarded, but the increasing number of slips that ended in either losing the quarry because they couldn't hold on to it or in being bitten, both negative experiences, it's caused this bird not to take a chance on every available slip unless it's set up just right. It has to be set up perfectly. And this is exactly what happened to the little tiercel I flew a couple years ago. He lost squirrels a lot. He got bit. And by the end of the second season, he refused to take even gray squirrels. I had to cut him loose, because we have big squirrels here and we don't have a lot of rabbits. And I just had to cut him loose. It wasn't fair. It wasn't fair to the bird or the falconer. So, here in West Virginia, we have to fly the larger red tails. Now, not to beat this concept clear into the ground, but I do want to mention male red tails that are suited for their available quarry. You can fly a hawk male on squirrels. I mean, you can do it. One instance would be in the case of hawking a tiercel here in West Virginia for one season, then releasing it if you're in an area where the squirrels are bigger and that bird might not perform well the next season. Is this something I would do personally? No, but it's possible. You can do it. I don't see the point in hawking a bird not matched with its quarry in the first place, but it can be done. But now take a male red tail on predominantly gray squirrels. Falconer Price Blaylock in Houston comes to mind. I followed Price's journey last season because I was immediately curious to see how a tiercel would do on squirrels in an area other than my own. And Price had a very successful first season with his Tiercel Red-tailed Ranger. On one hunt, they even took 5 in one day. They ended up that season with 40 squirrels, and he even took about a third fox squirrels. So again, I'm not here to tell you that you can't fly a tiercel on squirrels. I'm just here to caution you this. Make sure you match your red tail to the squirrels that you'll be hawking in your area. All squirrels are not created equal. You got to know your available quarry, and you have to select a suitable bird to match, because the bottom line is this: birds learn. They do learn. They continue to get better or they continue to get worse, but they learn. I believe that a bird that's matched with its quarry, all things equal, does get better after its first season. So I encourage interviewing a bird like a big hen redtail if she's proven herself the first season. It's possible for her to continue to get better. Before I go on, are there any questions so far? All right, I want to keep going. I want to talk a little bit about husbandry, and I'm just gonna touch on a few things here. Falconry is hard, guys. I mean, it's hard, and one of the biggest lessons I learned my first season flying on squirrels was meticulous husbandry. It makes the difference between putting game in the bag and coming up empty. If your bird's talons aren't sharp, it doesn't matter how big her feet are. That fox squirrel, I mean, gonna slip right through those talons if they're not sharp. If she's recovering from an injury, give her time to heal. You know, a bite that looks like it could be healed could still be sore. So you want to check it real closely. And if it's sore, that can affect grip and that can lead to another bite. So, you know, just be meticulous with your husbandry. And that especially pertains to feathers. This is one of the biggest lessons I learned about husbandry when I was flying mags. Wings matter. It sounds simple when you say it like that, but any more than one feather broken should be emped, because it can make the difference between catching a gray squirrel and not catching it. Mags, my red tail here, she busted the tips off 6 of her primaries about a month after I started hawking her, and she broke them on the side of her jump box that I'd enclosed with a material that wasn't suitable. I was trying to fix one problem and I caused another. It's classic falconry, but anyway, I immediately fixed the jump box, but it took 2 weeks before I could get her into the vet to get her imped. At this point, I wasn't doing imping and coping on my own. Now that's something my mentor Ray and I do together. He imps and I cope, and we make a pretty good team. But in this instance, I had to wait 2 weeks before I could get her in to get her imped. And up to this point, Mags was nailing fox squirrels, but she could not connect with the faster gray squirrels. And as soon as I got her imped, we went out and took her first gray squirrel immediately. And ironically, it was the smallest squirrel of the season, but I was most proud of it because I learned that even an inch off of the tips of the feathers, they put the bird at a disadvantage. So now I imp if she's missing more than one primary. A similar issue happened last year, and you'd think I wouldn't make the same mistake twice, but she was missing one primary from a hunt, and the tip just about an inch from another primary right beside of it, and it was a husbandry issue. And I addressed the issue, but you know, she was still missing that tip, and she started getting bites, which very rarely happens. She doesn't get bad bites. And we realized she was grabbing the squirrels by the body if she got them, but she was missing quite a bit, which also doesn't normally happen. And it was Ray actually who realized that she was missing these shots by inches, and that's why she was getting bit, and that it was most likely her feathers, because, you know, all other factors were in great condition. So anyway, we imped both of the feathers, and a second, let me admit somebody here, guys. We imped both of the feathers, and she started nailing the squirrels by the head again and not getting bit. So just keep in mind, you know, your husbandry, especially those feathers, it's important. It's really important. Now, before I move on, any questions? Man, you guys are easy tonight. Okay, manning and training. Don't get hung up calling your red tail to the glove during manning. This is something I almost messed up when I was manning mags. Now, luckily, Ray's mentor, Jason, he was helping me out by looking over some videos. I always take videos when I'm training, and I do this for myself and also for my mentors to check out. You know, anytime you can get an extra set of eyes on something, you know, it's helpful. And Jason realized I was overworking mags to the glove. And after I got mags flying to the glove, and, you know, he told me what I was doing, I kept up the pace with her training so I could get her out and hunting in the field without losing too much condition or interest in, you know, the whole point of what we were doing, which was hunting. So if you overwork them to the glove, they tend to be more focused on you when you get out to the field, and it can take a little bit longer to get them hunting. Now this is a good one. It's a really easy step, but a really valuable one in my opinion, especially if it's the first time that you're working with a bird. If your laws allow it, grab a fresh roadkill squirrel, or if you're against that, you know, go out and shoot one. Whatever, get you a dead squirrel. Tie that squirrel to a long string, hide it under a pile of leaves, grass, whatever, and then you can have someone reel the squirrel very slowly, or you can use a lure machine if you've got one, just on super slow speed, because the object is just for the bird to grab the squirrel, not a fitness exercise. What you want to do is you want that bird to fly in, grab the squirrel, and practice making in on your bird on a squirrel and not just the lure. This gives you the opportunity to pretend to dispatch the squirrel so your bird won't have to figure out what you're doing in the field. And it also gives you the opportunity to trade your bird off a squirrel and not just the lure. Now, obviously, a warm squirrel that's that's just died at the hands of your bird is a little bit different than trading it off of this dead squirrel that didn't even put up a fight. But I still find this little exercise simple and worthwhile. Also, if your bird tries to carry the squirrel, you've got a string tied to it, and you can stand on the string to discourage this behavior. So it's an all-around good training session to do right before you start hunting. Any questions before I move on to lessons in the field? All right. So there's more than one way to skin the proverbial cat, guys, but I've found that using a pillowcase to start trading your bird at first is the best way to get them hopping off the game for the trade without too much of a fight. Mags, my hen red tail, didn't like to give up the squirrel at all the first few times. She'd be cranked up to 11 after a kill, and the pillowcase helped us get her hopping off it more easily. So here's how it works. You cover the squirrel with a pillowcase and you hold it down to the ground. And when you do that, the visual aspect of the game is taken away, and the bird's more calm when she jumps to the trade. Now, I was taught to use a day-old chick body for the trade. I toss it beside her. She jumps over to it. Then I hop her up to my glove with a chick leg. And I like the day-old chick body because it looks like a lot of food. But the bird burns through it quickly. it helps when you're taking multiples, especially because a bird can still be at weight to hawk the next day. Now, on days I don't hawk during the season, I don't feed day-old chicks. I just use them, to trade. And then I top my bird off with mouse, squirrel, rabbit, whatever she's killed. And then on the days I don't hawk, I just feed mouse, squirrel, rabbit, no chick. Now, where this pillowcase trick still comes in handy for me is when I'm hawking alone. My bird can get down a day-old chick before I can get the squirrel in my game bag or hide it because I'm small. So I cover the squirrel with the pillowcase, then I hop my bird to the glove, I hood her. Once she's hooded, I have got all the time in the world to get that squirrel in my game bag. So it works out really well. So whether you're using that pillowcase just at the beginning, and then you start trading without it, or whether you still take it along with you if you hawk alone and you have trouble having the time to trade, it's a great little trick. One of the other lessons that I learned while hawking in the field with my mentor, Ray, was letting the bird rouse or reset before tossing her back up in a tree to continue hunting. I always hood her after she kills something. So I let her reset by walking around until she rouses. And whenever she rouses, there's this little reset that happens in her brain, and you pop the hood back off her and you toss her in a tree. And now she's not concerned with what happened to the squirrel she just killed, even if it's still like if there's two squirrels in the tree and you're going after the same squirrel, she's not concerned about that. She's not focused on you, and she's ready to get back to hunting. There's a couple funny stories about learning this method in my book. So when that ebook comes out, if you get the opportunity, or like I said, if you can find one that's used, that's for sale, there's some funny stories about the reset in there. Now, I don't mention this one in my book because this is a lesson I learned this past season while hawking with Ray's mentor, Jason, that I mentioned a couple times here. I went up to hawk with him, and the woods were so quiet that day. I mean, it was eerie. And Jason suggested that we stay back and let my bird go ahead of us. And this is a guy that's, he has hawked for, I think, close to 30 years. Just every little tidbit of information that he gives you, you hang on it. So I thought, all right, let's try this. So we hang back and we let Mags go ahead of us. And she was so confused at first. She's thinking, what are we doing? You're changing up the game. But she eventually got the hang of it. She realized she was supposed to be looking ahead instead of, watching for where we were going to flush. The squirrels, and she got one, and she did great, but because nothing was moving in the woods that day, she had more of an advantage by being stealthy and sitting in the tree and us being quiet, because those squirrels could also see every movement. So, learn to read the woods. If it's cloudy or snowing, like I say, try a spot that's got more nests and vines. If it's not one of those sunny days that, the squirrels aren't going to be out. And if the wind's calm, try that little stealth approach. It paid off. It paid off for us that day. Mags did get hung up for a few minutes with the second gray squirrel she got. Didn't take a bite from that one. Turned out okay. But ultimately it paid off. And I'm really glad that Jay taught me this method. So definitely a little trick to keep in your arsenal is reading the woods. Oh man, this one is something that's still hard for me to do to this day, but it's a really important one as far as behavioral conditioning goes. Leave a squirrel in a tree if you can't get it to move after 10 minutes. It's just not worth your bird losing confidence in you. If your bird can't see the squirrel and you keep hollering because you do, your bird will eventually lose confidence in you. It's simple behavioral conditioning. The squirrel moves, you holler, your bird sees it, it begins to associate that movement with you. And if you holler over and over and the squirrel doesn't come into view and nothing happens, your bird will be less inclined to come when you holler. Mags, my red tail now, she'll come when you holler ho, 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 even if she doesn't see the squirrel yet. She knows you've moved something. She's made that association and she's on her way as fast as she can. If your bird only turns its head when you holler ho, 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 and then it waits to see the squirrel before it's leaving the tree, that's often the difference between getting the squirrel or losing it. So don't let your bird lose confidence in you. Leave that squirrel in the tree if you're unable to move it, by some means. It happens. It's not worth it. Now, this was one of my biggest mistakes of my first season with my hen red tail. It's an issue I struggled with throughout the entire season and throughout the book. I touch on it quite a bit. Many successful squirrel hawks do not always have good glove recall in the field. It's just, they know that they can kill things and they know what to do once you toss them up in the tree. Now, I'm not saying they won't come down at all. What I'm saying is that response time, which you like to be instant when you're manning, because it's, an indicator of weight management, that doesn't always translate in the field. A small tidbit, not the same as the reward of a whole chick body. And a well-trained squirrel hawk is conditioned to know what happens when she gets tossed up in a tree. She wants to hawk. She wants to feel a squirrel squirm between her talons, and she wants to be rewarded with a big chick body. Now, I can generally get Mags to a tidbit on the glove if we need to change hunting locations, if one's not working, but this is generally at the point where she's realized we're not getting any slips. This site isn't working out today. She knows I'm going to call her to that glove and I'm going to take her to another place because I haven't called her to the lure yet. That's something else I do. I always end the hunt on the lure. I was taught that. It's great. It's a positive experience. Helps with that conditioning. But anyway, I didn't realize about that glove response the first season. And I wanted that recall when in the field, if I whistled, I wanted her to come down to my glove. And, the response time that it took her to fly down to my glove, it just didn't seem good enough. So I kept bringing her weight down and I ended up getting her too light. She lost condition and ultimately we lost a lot of squirrels because of it, because of that mistake that I made. And it took, getting her back up in weight and condition, because obviously when I flew her too light, she lost muscle mass. It took a while to get her back up to par because of that mistake. So anyway, just keep in mind, if your bird is a good squirrel bird, likes to hunt, that glove recall in the field may not always be great. Don't take that as your bird's too heavy. The last thing I want to mention regarding lessons in the field is this. If you're having trouble becoming a successful squirrel hawker or whatever type of hawking that you're doing, seek help. I mean, even if you're already a general, seek help. I knew very little about squirrel hawking even once I became a general falconer. In fact, a lot of people think I was an apprentice when I wrote my book. And the truth is, I was in my first year of becoming a general falconer. But I knew very little about squirrel hawking, and I knew I wanted to be a successful squirrel hawker. So I sought out help. The photo on top, that's of me and my mentor, Ray, and that's the day I got my first double. It was incredible. It was something I thought that I would never be able to do. And I wouldn't be talking with you guys tonight if it wasn't for him. He taught me nearly everything I know about squirrel hawking, and he did so through these experiences in the field. His mentor, Jason, he's in the bottom left picture. He taught Ray everything. And Ray wasn't my sponsor. Jason wasn't Ray's sponsor. What I'm saying is this: just because you might have a piece of paper that says you're a general falconer doesn't mean you're not going to continue to need help during your falconry journey. So seek out help, listen to those who are willing to invest time in you, and you're going to become a better falconer, whatever type of falconry you're doing. Now, at the end of the day, your goal should be to consistently take game with your red tail. That's the whole point of what we do as falconers. And to that end, I'm going to circle back around to Matt's new book, For Falconry Fundamentals. In it, he outlines a metric that he calls intended quarry per hunt. It's the ratio of quarry per hunt. And we should all strive to get something every day when we go out, but we know that's not always possible. But you take this metric and you're looking for it, to be 1. You should strive for it to be 1 or higher. So at the end of each month, at the end of the season, you can look at your intended quarry per hunt, this metric, and you can see how you're faring, because it also takes into account the days that you've hunted. So now you've got this, it's not merely a head count, you've got this metric that allows you to compare your bird's performance from season to season. So it's great. I highly recommend keeping track of that intended quarry per hunt metric. Yeah. Lastly, remember, you're gonna make mistakes in your falconry journey. I have made and continue to make a lot of them. I'm not an expert. Give yourself some grace to make mistakes. Just address these issues immediately when you find them. Stay on top of your husbandry, and don't ever stop trying to put game in front of your bird, and you're going to do just fine. You're going to do just fine. Any questions about these lessons in the field before I go on? All right. So I'm just going to quickly touch on a couple of things, questions that always end up getting asked. I like to consider myself a minimalist when it comes to loading my hawking bag, but I got to admit, when I pulled everything out of it, I looked and I thought, oh my gosh, I do not pack light. But so here's what's in my hawking vest. I carry chlorohex and neosporin. Now Matt uses this new stuff called benzalkonium chloride. It's a antibiotic-free wound gel from CVS. I can't get that here without lidocaine, and obviously you don't want to use the one with the pain relieving stuff in it. But what's great about that one is it's water-based. If you can find that where you are, it's a great little thing to carry with you. Just got to be careful when you're using the Neo or SSD cream, that you don't get it on the feathers. But I carry that and chlorhexidine for bites in the field. I do treat them immediately when they happen in the field. I also carry, trades, tidbit, feed, my pillowcase, squirrel poker. We've got the big fox squirrels here. I do use a squirrel poker. I know my own limitations and that I have trouble dispatching a fox squirrel without a squirrel poker. You just have to be careful, obviously, when you're using it. We've switched to the GPS system here. It's a great system. I also do carry the on and off magnet with me in case you need to reset it in the field. So I do carry that. I carry an extra glove for my other hand. Now I'm left-handed, so I use that other glove on my left hand, but I don't like sticking my bare hand in on a squirrel and a hawk, so I carry an extra glove. Something else that I've started carrying too, we don't have good cell phone service here in West Virginia, and let me start a video and maybe you guys can see this. Okay. This is my Spot two-way satellite messenger. It's a GPS texting system. They've got one that's just SOS and it calls emergency services when you use it, but I want to be able to text as well, just in case, it's just something that I need a little help on, or I'm going to just be late. But this little guy, if you hawk alone in a place that doesn't have cell phone service, which is a lot of places I hawk alone, it's great. There is like a monthly service fee, but this is the little SOS button. There's like, you can press this for emergency services or use it to text. So I do use that as well. And I carry a knife. I like the Havalon Peranta Edge. They've got the blades that'll switch out. And if I'm hawking alone, I carry a slingshot and ammo. If I'm not hawking alone, to be honest, especially if it's Ray, I just let him do it because I suck with a slingshot. But I can use it, and I do use it in the field if I have to. Last thing for the night, other equipment that I use heavy duty jesses by Mike Craig. I used to use leather jesses, but I've found that I don't like the fact that leather can be compromised more easily with a big hen red tail. So I like those heavy duty jesses, and Mike Craig makes some great ones. Now, I do use squirrel chaps. That's another polarizing thing, but I'm very picky about the squirrel chaps that I use. I like the ones from A. Clark because the fringes on them, they're really supple, so they don't mess with the dexterity of your bird. And then the other thing I like is you've got two layers. You got two layers in here. I had a really bad bite happen with mags on the anklet itself when I was making my own anklets. Even though I was using heavy duty leather, it just didn't work out real well, and a fox squirrel bit clear through the heavy duty leather and onto her leg, and it was actually one of the worst bites that she had that season. We struggled with getting it healed. So anyway, I like those squirrel chaps by A. Clark Falconry. I also use bells by Larry Counts. I like to use, now I only fly one bell since we're using the GPS. But I like to use two different size bells if I'm flying two bells, because you can kind of hear them better when you've got two in the different tones. So I use a little Harris Hawk bell, one size down, and then the size 209 for the red tail. And it's a nice combo. You can really hear it well in the woods, even if you're hard of hearing. I love Ken Hook's hoods. They fit like a glove. They're amazing. I like the aluminum transport box from Davidson's Falconry because I can lift it with a finger, with one finger. And for me, being able to carry my bird and transport easily, that aluminum transport box is great. I use a simple triple layer falconry glove from Mike's Falconry. Until I started using the triple layer, I did have some issues with my bird squeezing through during manning and training, mainly squeezing through and poking me through anything but the triple layer. Like I mentioned, we use the Marshall GPS system, easy to find your bird. And then I use the Daisy B52 slingshot from Walmart. It's about the cheapest slingshot you can get, and it works really well. And if you accidentally throw it down and leave it in the woods, which I've been known to do in fits of excitement, you're not out a bunch of money. So that's what equipment I use. And I'm going to open it up to questions. That's my presentation. Any questions? Wow. Okay. Well, guys, I really appreciate all you that have joined in tonight. Especially on a weeknight, on a work day. So I'm gonna sign off here and wish you guys a good evening. Take care.